For the first time in 15 years, we are debating the congressional role in the declaration of war. We have fought the longest war in U.S. history under an original authorization to go after the people who attacked us on 9/11. That war is long since over. The war has long since lost its purpose. And it's long time that we have a debate in Congress about whether we should be at war or not. It is the constitutional role of Congress. Interestingly, the folks that you have heard on either side of the issue have said it is our job. It is what we should be doing. And yet we haven't done it for 16 years. Who in their right mind thinks that Congress is actually going to do their job without being forced to do their job? My resolution is actually silent on whether we should still be at war. My resolution just simply says that the resolutions that we have previously passed will expire. I don't believe they have anything to do with the 7 wars we're involved with currently anyway. But if we were to force them to expire, we would then have a debate. But for those who say, yes, Congress should exert its authority, Congress should be involved in the initiation of war, they don't really believe that unless they're going to vote that way. What will happen is the continuation of the same, that we abdicate that role and let the president do whatever he wants. It's worse than that. Let's say we were to vote for my resolution and that the authorization to go to war after 9/11 expired. Do you think any of the wars would end? No, the neoconservatives and the neoliberals believe the president has unlimited authority. They call it Article 2 authority for war. There is some authority given to the president. It's an enormous amount of authority to execute the war, but not to initiate war. The sole duty of initiation of war was given specifically to Congress. So if these authorities were to expire, the president already says, I have all the authority I want under the Constitution to do whatever I want. But that's not what our founders wanted. Madison, if he were here, would vehemently disagree. Madison wrote that the executive branch is the branch most prone for war. Therefore, the Constitution, with studied care, vested that power in the legislature. It was supposed to be difficult to go to war. And some gnash their hands and say, oh, Senate could never agree on any authorization to go to war. You know how long it took us after Pearl Harbor? 24 hours, and we declared war on Japan. You know how long it took us after 9/11? 3 days. We can come together as a body when we're attacked, when we're unified in purpose. But guess what? After 16 years, it's difficult to determine the purpose in Afghanistan. But also those who say, oh, we need a new authorization, but it's going to authorize war anywhere, anytime, with no geographic limit or no time limit. Basically, they would be authorizing everything we're doing now and not putting any limitations on it. We're in Yemen. We are aiding and abetting the Saudi war in Yemen, and yet there's been no vote on it. 17 million people live on the edge of starvation because of the Saudi blockade and bombing campaign. We are aiding and abetting that, and yet there's been no vote here in Congress. Look, we've got problems here at home. These wars are costing trillions of dollars. They're unauthorized. We have not voted on them. And I say, look, let's pay attention to some of the problems we've got here at home. We're going to have a $150 billion tab for Harvey hurricane damage in Texas. And yet we continue with unauthorized, unconstitutional, undeclared war. I think it's time to think about what we've got, the problems we've got here at home. I think it's time to think about the $20 trillion debt we've got. But still we have this gnashing of hands, this wringing of hands, this gnashing of teeth that say, oh my goodness, what if Congress didn't do its job? What if we allowed these authorities, these authorization of force to expire, and we didn't get another one? Well, the thing is that's abdicating your constitutional duty. The duty is to do what is in your constitutional duty. It's not to say, well, the other congressmen won't do what their job is, so I'm not going to do my job. Our job is to enforce, obey, and execute the Constitution. The Constitution says Congress shall declare war. It doesn't say the president can go to war anywhere, anytime, around the globe. It says Congress shall declare war. So for the first time in 15 years, we are debating whether or not Congress has a role in this. And for those who will vote no against my resolution, they're basically voting, even though they will say otherwise, they are voting to say, well, let's just let the status quo go on. President can do what he wants. It's too emotional. It's too controversial to debate war. So we'll just keep letting the president do whatever he wants. Mine is a vote to grab power back. Mine is a vote to say the Senate has prerogative here. The Constitution gives the power to the legislature. That's what this vote is about. It's about grabbing back the power to declare war and saying this is a Senate prerogative. So the majority in all likelihood will say no, we don't want to do that. We think that that would risk some war somewhere, sometime. That's the point. We should be debating where we should be at war. Should we be at war in Somalia? Should we be at war in Libya? Should we be at war in Yemen? Should we be at war in Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan? Look, President Obama ran on ending the wars, and yet he ended up taking the war and bombing campaign to 7 countries without any authorization. Intriguingly, the left was relentless in criticizing George Bush, and yet George Bush did come to Congress. We had a vote to go after those who attacked us on 9/11. We had an ill-fought campaign in Iraq war, but we did actually vote on it. But we haven't voted for a generation. Should one generation be able to bind another generation? Realize if we don't force these authorizations to expire, this war could go on forever. You know, this is 1984. This is George Orwell saying Oceania has always been at war with East Asia. And then a month later saying Oceania has always been at war with Eurasia, because no one is stepping up to say no. That's what Congress is supposed to do. We are supposed to be a voice that debates and says, should we go to war? It's part of doing our job. But the only way to get Congress to do their job is to actually let these expire. We should have a full-throated debate over who initiates war. There's no murkiness to the Constitution. The Constitution is explicit. The initiation of war, the declaration of war, that power lies with Congress. But the war in Afghanistan has gone on 16 years now. We have people who will be fighting in the war. Our young men and women will be fighting in the war in the next year or so who were not yet born on 9/11. We've long since killed the people who perpetrated 9/11. With the killing of bin Laden, there is no person left in the leadership of al-Qaeda or Taliban that was around at that period of time. And we say, well, it's still the Taliban. Well, if you're going to say that we are going to fight to the end of time, that we're going to have a perpetual war to the end of time, and we are going to kill every radical Islamist in the world, it's an impossibility. What I would say is let's at the very least have a debate. If that is your purpose, and that is your goal, and that is what you stand for, step forward, let's have a debate. Let's debate the war in Yemen. Let's debate the war in Somalia. Let's debate whether we should be bombing people in Nigeria. Let's debate whether we should be in Syria, Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan. Let's have a debate about all of these different wars. But let's not just muddle on and say, oh, the president can do what he wants. Because realize the people in this body who are for perpetual war, they don't even think we should have any role in it. They tell me quietly every day the president can do whatever he wants under Article 2 of the Constitution. That's absolutely false. It goes absolutely against everything our founding fathers. Read the Federalist Papers. There is extensive debate over the war-making power, and they very explicitly, from Washington to Adams to Jefferson to Madison, all said, we give this power to Congress because we fear the perpetual wars that we have seen in Europe. We feared the wars of brother fighting brother and brother fighting cousins within these royal disputes that went on endlessly in Europe. And so we set up our founding document to try to make war difficult. But when we've been attacked, it's been easy to come together. 9/11, virtually unanimously, we came together within 3 days. Pearl Harbor within 24 hours. So what I would say to my colleagues is, let's do your job. This is your constitutional role. Let's let these expire, and over the next 6 months, let's debate whether we should be at war and where. But I, for one, am one who says that we should oppose unauthorized, undeclared, unconstitutional war. At this particular time, there are no limits on war. The 9/11 proclamation has been so interpreted so widely that it could mean anything. So you've got people who interpret it widely, but you've also got people saying the Constitution says the president can do anything. It's not what our founding fathers intended. I'm proud to be part of and an instigator of a debate. For the first time in 15 years, the full Senate will vote on whether or not we have a role in initiating war, whether we should continue to be at war, or whether we should even vote on whether we should continue to be at war. I urge the Senate to adopt my amendment, which would be a 6-month moratorium, a 6-month sunset on the 2001 and 2002 resolution, so we could then have the real debate. But mark my words, those who will come out and say they're for the real debate are not really for it unless they're willing to sunset it. Because we've been going 16 years without a real debate. There will be no real debate on war unless we pass this resolution. I yield back my time.